Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the discussion of Introduction to English Speech Sounds, which is under Modern English Structure paper. We are in the middle of the discussion of the consonants, and we described that the three-term label to express a consonantal sound could be voiced or voiceless, depending upon whether the vocal cords are vibrating or not. And depending upon the place of articulation, we have a number of names like the bilabial if the lips are involved, labiodental, dental, alveolar, postalveolar, palatoalveolar, palatal, and velar as well as glottal. Depending upon the way in which the air that is coming out from the lungs is passing through the mouth, which we call it as manner of articulation or stricture, we have different varieties of consonants like plosives, affricates, fricatives, nasals, lateral, frictionless continuant, and semival. Today we shall be talking about the lateral sound in English and the frictionless continuant. First, to talk about lateral sound. What is a lateral sound? Lateral is sides. A lateral consonant is articulated with the manner of articulation of complete closure in the central part of the oral tract. The vocal tract is completely closed in the middle, and the soft palate is raised to shut off the nasal passage of air as well. So the air that is coming out from the lungs is held up within the oral cavity, but the sides of the tongue are lowered so that the air escapes not from the middle of the mouth but from the sides of the mouth. Because the air is passing through the sides of the mouth or the lateral part of the mouth, the sound is called as lateral. In English, there is only one lateral sound, l. During the production of l, the tip of the tongue makes a contact with the teeth ridge, thereby blocking the oral passage of air. But the sides of the tongue are lowered so that the air will pass through the sides. In spite of the fact that the tip of the tongue has a contact that is maintained with the teeth ridge, the air passes out from the sides and hence it is called as lateral. In the Indian languages, we have two lateral sounds, l and r. For r, the rolling of the tongue has been observed. But in English, we have only one lateral sound, l. During the articulation of l sound, l as in leave, the soft palate is raised to block the nasal passage of air. The tip of the tongue makes a contact with the teeth ridge and the alveolar ridge to form a complete closure along the center of the oral tract. The sides or the rims of the tongue are lowered and the air from the lungs escapes along the sides of the tongue without having any friction. As you could find, just make your tongue touch the teeth ridge or the alveolar ridge, lower the sides of the tongue and pronounce along with me. That's right. The tip of the tongue should be in touch with the teeth ridge, thereby closing the oral tract. But the sides of the tongue are lowered so that the air that is coming out from the lungs passes through the sides, and hence it is a lateral sound. Obviously, the vocal cords vibrate and hence the sound is voiced. So the three-term label to describe l as in leave is voiced because the vocal cords vibrate, alveolar because the place of the articulation is alveolar ridge, and lateral because the sides of the tongue are lowered and the air coming out from the lungs passes through the sides of the mouth. Distribution-wise, the sound l occurs in all the three positions. In the initial position, as you could find in L-A-T-E, late. In the medial position, as in the example B-E-L-I-E-V-E, believe. And in the final position, as you could find in B-E-L-L, bell, bell. That's right. Let's look into some examples introducing us to the L sound. L-E-A-V-E, leave. L-I-T-T-L-E, little, little. L-E-T, let. L-A-M-B, lamb. As we said, wherever we have M and B in the spellings, B becomes silent, so it is lamb. L-A-R-G-E, large. L-O-N-G, long. L-A-W, law. L-O-O-K, look. L-O-S-E, lose. L-O-V-E, love. L-E-A-R-N, learn. The central one, longer, learn. L-A-K-E, the diphthongs begin here. Lake. L-O-A-F, love. L-I-N-E, line. L-O-U-D, loud. E-M-P-L-O-Y, employ. Employ. C-L-E-A-R, clear. K is aspirated, clear. F-L-A-R-E, flare. C-E-L-L-E-A-R, cellar. J-E-L-L-Y, jelly. C-A-L-L-I-N-G, calling. K is aspirated, calling. D-O-U-B-L-E, double. Double. N-O-B-L-E, noble. Now, wherever you find the words ending with L, as we discussed already, L sound functions as the syllabic consonant. And so, it cannot be double, but it is double. Noble, noble. Small, S-M-A-L-L, small. C-A-N-D-L-E, candle. The same logic applies here also. It is not candle, it is candle. F-I-E-L-D, field. C-O-L-D, cold. S-H-O-U-L-D, should. B-U-L-K, bulk. P-U-L-P-I-T, pulpit. The first per is aspirated, the second is not. Pulpit. Pulpit is a place where the church official stands and gives a sermon. The diagrammatic representation for the sound L is, as you could see in the picture, you could find that the soft palate is raised to shut off the nasal passage of air. The tip of the tongue makes a contact with the teeth ridge to completely block the oral passage as well. But as you could find, the sides of the tongue or the rims of the tongue are lowered so that the air that is coming out from the lungs can pass through the sides of the tongue in spite of the fact that the tip of the tongue makes a contact with the teeth ridge and is firm. That's why the sound is called as lateral. Lateral. That's right. The next sound that we have is the frictionless continuant, which is again a single sound that we could find in frictionless continuant in English. Whereas in the Indian languages, Sanskrit-derived languages, you have R sound, R-Rathatsa, and Ru sound, which is Ru-Rushitsa. And if you go into the ancient Sanskrit sounds, you have Ru-Ru included in the section of vowels, and R, which is included in the consonantal section. But in English, we have only one R sound, one frictionless continuant sound. A frictionless continuant is articulated with the manner of articulation of open approximation, where the active articulator is raised in the direction of the passive articulator in such a way that the air that is coming out from the lungs escapes through the gap without any friction. It is open approximation, it doesn't touch. As you could find in the pronunciation of vowel, that's why it is called as a vowel-like, because it has all the features like a vowel. In being open approximation, number one. Number two, it is voiced. Number three, it is a continuant. You can pronounce it to any length of time. You can pronounce it to any length of time because the tongue never touches the teeth ridge, or the active articulator never articulates, never touch any part of the passive articulator. Because it is frictionless, because it is continuant, because it is voiced, it's almost like a vowel sound, but still included under the list of consonants because of the functional and linguistic purposes. So, the soft palate is raised to shut off the nasal passage of air, and the frictionless continuant has got an open approximation where the active articulator is raised in the direction of the passive articulator in such a way that the air coming out from the lungs escapes through the gap without any friction. Thus, frictionless continuants are vowel-like in their articulation. And the three-term label for frictionless continuant of English is post-alveolar. The tip of the tongue actually goes to the back of the teeth ridge, as we could see in the next slide. During the articulation of RP, with the tip of the tongue being raised in the direction of the hinder part of the teeth ridge or the alveolar ridge. So it is not exactly the teeth ridge, but the hinder part of the teeth ridge to which the back of the tip of the tongue goes to. The air escapes continuously through the gap that is present between the tip of the tongue and the post-alveolar region without any friction, because the soft palate is raised to shut off the nasal passage of air. The vocal cords vibrate while the sound is pronounced, and hence the three-term label for r as in red is voiced, vocal cords vibrate, post-alveolar because the tip of the tongue goes very close to the post-alveolar region, frictionless, and continuant. That is the reason why we can pronounce the sound r to any length of time without stopping for breath. Yes, it's a frictionless continuant. Distribution wise, in English sounds, in English words, r occurs in the word initial and word medial position only. Word finally, it never occurs because the word final r is silent in English. You could find that as r occurs in the initial position, as in the example rat, rat. Medial position SORRY, sorry, sorry. And we don't find the frictionless continuant in English sounds occurring in the word final position. The examples for the practice of r sound is REASON, reason, RID, red, 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 RASH, rash, RAFT, raft, WRONG, wrong, RAW, raw, ROOM, room, RULE, rule, RUN, run, RACE, raise, diphthongs from hereafter, ROPE, rope, RIGHT, right, ROUND, round, ROYAL, royal, REAL, real, RARER, rarer, rarer. That's right. LITERARY, literary, literary. RECRUIT, recruit. K is aspirated here because the stress comes over there. Recruit. CAR, car. FAR, far. You have a letter in the spelling, but we don't pronounce it when it occurs in the word final position. Whenever r sound is there or r letter is there in the word final position, it is never pronounced. R also is never pronounced if it is before the consonants in the word medial position. Only before the vowel sounds r is pronounced. So MARK, the letter r is present before a consonant k, and so it is not pronounced. So it is pronounced as mark. SHORT, the letter r is present before the letter t. T happens to be, or T happens to be, a consonant, and hence it is not to be pronounced. So it is not short as we pronounced or mark as we pronounce, but it is mark and short. Similarly is WARM. Normal Indian pronunciation is warm, but the RP pronunciation is warm. FORCE, force, not force. GIRL, girl, not girl, girl. WORLD, world. CHURCH, church. WEIRD, weird. So, two important things that are to be remembered while dealing with r sound is, r sound is never pronounced in the word final position. And r sound in English words also is not pronounced when r letter occurs, when r occurs before the consonantal letters. Before the vowels, it is pronounced, and in the word initial position, it is pronounced. So this is to be borne in mind for an appropriate pronunciation of r sound. Keeping in mind the pronunciation of silent letters is a must to improve the pronunciation of English. The diagrammatic representation for r is, as you could see, post-alveolar part. The tip of the tongue goes very close to. And we have seen that in the diagram, the tongue doesn't touch either the teeth ridge or the post-alveolar ridge. The air that is coming out from the lungs has to pass through the mouth because the soft palate is raised to shut off the nasal passage of air. and the air passes through the narrow gap that is present between the tip of the tongue and the post-alveolar ridge continuously without any friction. So it's a frictionless continuant, post-alveolar and voiced. Because it is frictionless, continuant and voiced, this is similar to that of vowels and hence it is called as vowel-like. The nasals, the lateral consonant L and the frictionless continuant R, we could see that they share a number of features with the vowels. But for the linguistic purposes, these are present in the consonantal list. Thank you very much for being a part of this presentation on lateral sound and frictionless continuant. Stay tuned for the next videos and bye for now.